everyone, Steve here from theturtlefollower.com, and in today's video we're going to take a look at these markets and kind of get an idea of where we think we may be headed this week. We've been discussing over the past week or two about the potential for a couple of different reversal signals. We talked about the head and shoulders pattern. We talked about a downtrend line. So as of right now, I kind of am getting the idea that maybe that's kind of off the table. And so what I did is I cleared the charts. We're going to go ahead and look at the charts just with a fresh eye, nothing on the charts, and see what's going on. So the first one we're going to look at is the S&P 500 futures. And again, you could see on the weekly chart, uptrend is very much intact. Okay, the 200-day moving average trending higher. All right, and we're coming right into that level. Okay, you could see that here, how the market itself is pulling back right into that 200-day moving average. All right, and now for the first time in 3 weeks, we finally had a higher close on the week. All right, so that's one thing. So I'm liking the idea of potentially reversing off the 200-day moving average. The second thing we were going to look at is on the daily chart, we've had these ideas, or we've had the V-shaped reversal. Okay, we came down, we moved higher. We came down, we moved higher. And then sure enough, what we thought was possibly happening back in the beginning of January was the same thing. We thought we were coming back down and moving higher, and that didn't happen. And that's when a lot of people started to say, you know what, maybe we're headed lower, something's changed. But right now, what did happen is we came all the way back in. We had this week of just lower prices, and then a week of almost exact. It's pretty funny, a week straight down and then a week straight up. And now what I'm looking at is just as if we were looking at any other stock, we've broken a downtrend line. All right, we've broken the downtrend line that was containing this move, and that happened on Thursday. Now on Friday, we pretty much hit a resistance point, but we did close the week above the 50-day moving average. But let's look at where we hit. All right, if we go back, we're hitting the exact level from here on January 9th. Okay, we hit it almost to the T. Let's see that here. All right, so if we were looking at this as a stock and not as necessarily just the whole overall market, we could say, well, you know what, maybe we're actually in a consolidation. All right, and let's get rid of this downtrend line and it'll be a little bit more obvious. Okay, so maybe we're actually just consolidating here and waiting for the next move higher or lower. So on the S&P 500 futures, if we were to break over 2060 and close, or break below 1980 and close, that would drastically change my opinion at this point. But right now, I think maybe we're just in some sideways movement here. And that's fine, because sideways movement is going to lead us to the next market direction. I don't know if we necessarily break out directly from here. If we can get, as a bull, if we can get maybe a week or so of higher prices, that kind of just hang out, say, between 2040 and 2060, I think that's a great setup for us to break out higher the following week, the first week of February, and push to these highs here around 2100. Now on the Nasdaq itself, okay, it's a similar situation. Whereas this one, okay, we pushed through the resistance from back here on 1.9, okay, and we actually put in a small doji. But what I'm looking at here, again, uptrend still intact. You could see on the weekly chart. I don't know why you could see here on the weekly chart, we came back in. Again, 3 weeks of lower prices, and then finally maybe a little bit of a reversal signal here where we got to close above the highs from the previous two bars. All right, so this is the highest close in 2015 in the Nasdaq. And now what we're looking at here on the daily chart is, instead of necessarily a bit of a sideways pattern, I'm looking more at a little bit of a symmetrical or asymmetrical triangle, a descending triangle. All right, so maybe we're kind of putting in this type of consolidation. We're now between 46 43.75 and say 42.75. Maybe it just consolidates. Again, if we can hang out here above, call it 4,200, I think that's great for the bulls moving forward. But for right now, I'm looking at most of the markets as if they're in consolidation patterns, and they're really just waiting for the next move. And that move could very well be just the end of January. There's options coming up. Next option expiration cycle is in February. So maybe that gets us kind of moving in one direction or another. Now the Dow, again, similar situation. Not as strong as the Nasdaq. But here, again, we look at the weekly chart coming back into that 200-day moving average. And now we're really just consolidating. You can see it pretty well here on the weekly chart. You can see these highs and these lows. Okay, they almost line up identical. All right, so we're in a range. All right, very simple, in a range between 17,850 and 17,150. All right, that's the range you have on the Dow, and you can see that here. All right, we came in. We're now on a trend line, moving higher. We broke that downtrend line. Actually, I'm sorry. No, we didn't. We didn't break the downtrend line. Okay, so now maybe this one is just more of a symmetrical triangle where you have lower highs and higher lows. All right, and something at some point has to give. But for right now, we're in that triangle, and that's, again, another form of consolidation. You could see that here. You're just bouncing back and forth between both sides. Very possible it comes down to 17,200, then moves higher. Very possible that this is a high. But for right now, we're in consolidation, and until we move out of it, we have to trade in with that idea in mind. So I guess the overall theme for this week's video is really just sideways action. All right, we're just moving sideways, and nothing's been determined yet. There's no more reversal signals. There's no more head and shoulders patterns. The fact is, we're in sideways action, and until we break out of those sideways movements, those consolidations, any possible trend coming out of it, is possible. We can break to the downside. We could break to the upside. We're not in any type of trend right now. We're just chop, chop, chop. So last one, the Russell, okay, the Russell futures. And again, you could see here we've had this discussion about the Russell just moving sideways for a long time now, almost a little over a year and a half, or a little under a year and a half, actually, a little under a year and a half. But you can see here on the weekly chart, the 200-day moving average is flat, and we're bouncing between 1,210 and 1,100. All right, just about. So with that said, let's look at it from a little bit more of a action time frame here, where we broke out. The breakout failed. Okay, we broke out from this consolidation, and at that point, I thought maybe it was heading higher. We broke out. Sure enough, that failed. Now we're putting in another consolidation. Okay, so for right now, between 1,200 and 1,140, we're just in sideways action, and until that changes, then we just have to trade it as such. So that's it for tonight's video. I hope that helps you guys going forward. We definitely outlined some good levels to keep an eye on, and make sure that your trading is in accordance with what the market's actually doing and not what you want it to do. So if you haven't already, please take a minute, head over to the membership sign up page for the premium membership. Take advantage of the 14-day free trial, and see how we put this all to use. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow.